So one other thing I wanted to talk about with this week was developing assessment items for project-based learning. The project-based learning assignment requires you to create a rubric of some kind and work through that. And there are some strategies that I think are shared in the textbook and that I've also shared that talk about this. So project-based learning assessment items. Number one, describe what you want in concrete, observable terms. And this is an interesting one. Oh, I guess I've lost the link to that one. Anyway, describe it in concrete, observable terms is a good idea to do. And so, in other words, you have things like explain in the context of the product preparation, explain content thoroughly, fully support and justify your explanation. You have these concrete terms that are shared. Address the driving questions in the context of your presentation, make a strong, convincing argument, answer the driving questions but in an oversimplified way. These are, they have different unsatisfactory, proficient, advanced little areas, but it also explains not just proficient, but what is proficient. If you do this, then it's proficient. If you do this, then it's unsatisfactory. If you do this, then it's advanced. So anyway, try to explain what you want or describe what you want in concrete, observable terms. And here's another example for a poster type of rubric. For instance, you could have required elements. The poster includes all required elements as well as additional information. You could even get more in depth with this by listing out the required elements. Let's say there are 5 of them and you say it includes these 5 required elements and list them out. You could say all required elements are included on the poster, all but one of the required elements are included, several required elements were missing. So that, again, these are concrete observable terms that you can share with students, and you can say, well, not all of the 5 items were there. Attractiveness. Poster is exceptionally attractive in terms of design, layout, and neatness. Or the poster is distractingly messy or very poorly designed. It is not attractive. And again, these are points up here. 4, 3, 2, or 1. So a student who has a poster that is acceptably attractive, though it may be a bit messy, gets 2 points for the attractiveness category. And that's how it scores up. So that's something to be aware of too. There are, errors in capitalization. How many errors are we going to allow? These are concrete, observable terms that help us to easily grade assignments and save a lot of time with the grading process. Also, I think this is given in the book that 25% or less of the grade should be on just technical aspects. So let's say you have students create a poster. Only 25% or less of the poster should be on aesthetics or quality of the poster itself. The rest should be on content, the content that you want them to do. And so you have to separate those, right? Content and container. So this is the container, so to speak. 25% or less should be on the container itself, whereas 75% should be on the content. So yeah, content this is an example of content. Include a description of the tools, weapons, daily work, and key events of the era. That could be a history assignment or social studies. And then the container would be 8 slides, audible sound, large text, at least 3 pictures. So again, the container shouldn't be the main source of the grading, is what Doug Johnson is saying. Instead, he's saying that the content really should be the focus, and at least 75% of the grade should be the content itself, that students know what they're supposed to be presenting, they understand the subject area, and so forth. But he does say to grade both, but just not, both equally. To share with students, use examples of past quality work and present those to students as you are thinking about assessing and grading student work, and sharing with students what to do for the project. Use examples of past quality work and point out aspects of the work that are good to you, that are useful and quality. And use more than one example, right? We don't want students to submit the same assignment for every student. We want to see a variety of examples so that we see a variety of projects that students submit to us. And also give grading criteria to learners at the outset. Don't just send them forth to do the project without knowing how you're going to grade the project. And then you can use the assessment tool to guide student revision. So again, if you might go through and use the rubric and say, okay, it looks like you're doing well in this part of the rubric, but it looks like you're missing these elements from the rubric, so make sure you fill those in as you continue your project. That could be a way to help students to formatively create their projects. And another tip is to use multiple assessors. Assessors are people. So multiple meaning that you can have more than one person maybe assess a project. Maybe you could assess it, but also you could have other groups in the class assess student projects or other people who the project might relate to. And then revise assessment tools as you go along. So as you're grading assignments, you might think, well, I really should have included something on spelling and grammar because I'm having a lot of struggles with that this year. Well, that might be something to incorporate. You might be able to incorporate that into your current class, but it's likely that you could not incorporate that into your current class just because the project might be over or too far along. So you can make sure that make a note on the assessment tool or on the rubric and say, I want to add an item on spelling and grammar and revise it for next time. That way next year when you do the project again, or next semester or whenever it is, you can have that extra item that you have added to revise it. And this is an example of a rubric from one of my assignments. You can do a rubric like this too. You can see the categories are the name, title, and summary, 21st century skill, etc. And then use those scores on there on the right hand side. Or you can do the rubric as before where you have different levels of each category, and that gives you the amount of points that students would get for that assignment. But either way, there are different possibilities for assessing assignments, and you could do some practice if you wanted to. You could look at, like, how would you grade a presentation on plant growth observations? How would you grade a poplet on taxonomy of living organisms? And how would you grade a poster that compares two books that discuss the same theme? Again, you might have to, you could create a rubric for these items as a practice. And say, what are the elements that I would look for in a poster that compares two books that discuss the same theme? But for this class, you're going to get practice when you do your project-based learning experience. And just as a parting thought, there are some project-based learning technologies and formats that are out there that can be used. And we talk about the iPad in this class, as well as just websites and other types of things. So iPad apps include the iWork series from Apple, Keynote, Pages, iMovie. The students can create a Keynote presentation or a Pages presentation or an iMovie presentation or a movie. They can create something on EduCreations, and that works also not in the app, so on the web as well. And it's just a presentation software that uses a whiteboard, and the students can create drawings and pictures and other items to share their knowledge. Glogster was one, although Glogster now is not free as it was before, so it's not a recommended one so much. They can create a Prezi and also Poplet pages with popples and Padlets. There are just a whole bunch of different options for creating projects that students could go through and create. But the idea is to assess these projects well and make sure that you develop good assessment items for project-based learning. And really, the tool of making good assessments is experience. So like it says, to revise the assessment over time. So create a good rubric, as good as you can think of, the first time, and have students try it out. And then you'll probably find things about it that aren't correct. You want to add some things in there, or to take away some items, or change the amount of points that an item is worth. And just keep it going, keep revising that assessment, and that will come up with greater and greater assessments over time for your project-based learning experiences.